September 1968, week 38, 290. It started on Monday night. I heard Mom cry out in pain. Then she yelled for me to get ready to drive her to the hospital. She talked me through all this in advance, but something about it scared the hell out of me. I checked on her, then went to the garage, started the car, and battled the panic while I waited. When she got into the car, pain sparked off her, and she panted and sweated like she was going to melt. Should I call someone? I asked. She shook her head. It's better this way. He'll find out soon enough. Now hurry up unless you want this baby to be born in the front seat. By the time we got to the emergency entrance, sweat soaked my t-shirt, and my hands trembled like an old man's. They whisked Mom away, and I staggered to the waiting room to worry and wait. It was after midnight, so nothing was on the TV. I leafed through old magazines to stay calm, but with every passing minute, the worry cranked up a notch. And then anger started edging around the worry. The peacenik should have been there, not me. He should have driven Mom to the hospital while she twisted and groaned with labor pains. I stared at the clock. If I had known his name and number, I would have dropped a dime in that pain phone and called him to demand that he come to fix this mess he started, to take responsibility for Mom and their new baby. But all I could do was sit and sulk and worry. Before long, a nurse walked in. Ash Douglas? I couldn't read her face. Was something wrong with Mom? The baby? I looked up, and she looked at me with surprise. You're the brother? Then, well, congratulations. You have a baby sister. September 1968, week 39, 247. Miscegenation, the topic of the day in Mr. Ruby's class. Arizona had only recently dropped its laws against interracial marriage, he said, but many states still clung to their old statutes. Dad was like those states, still hanging on to racist traditions and hate. I slumped in my desk and shoved those thoughts out of my head. I didn't want to deal with it then, even though it was staring me right in the face. October 1968, week 40, 247. Mom named the baby Rosa, and the first time my little sister grabbed my finger with her tiny hand, she grabbed my heart too. Something about that flooded me with love, and I was surprised by the spontaneous flow of tears that leaked down my cheeks. She was perfect, beautiful, and black. The first time I saw her, she was still so wrinkled and baby new, and I was so rattled with relief that she and Mom had survived birth that I didn't even think about her shiny black hair and beautiful brown skin. I didn't even think about what Dad would say or do. I didn't even think about the gossip that would spread about my mom. Seeing my baby sister, my only thoughts were about how much I loved her, how I would always love her, and nothing anybody said or did, even Dad, could change how I felt about my precious sister. October 1968, week 41, 167. The very real weight of responsibility pressed on me from all sides after Rosa's birth. I wanted to fight for her and Mom, but I knew the minefield of divorce would be treacherous, unpredictable, and terrifying. My parents were parallel to the violence in Vietnam, and I truly dreaded that I might be called on to fight in both wars at once. I laugh now when I remember how I once believed that a sweet, innocent baby like Rosa might mend our fractured family. But when Dad finally heard about her, he swore he'd ruin Mom and make sure her black bastard would rot in foster care. He must not have known that when he attacked Mom, I'd stand in the crossfire. October 1968, week 42, 100. Thursday, Angela came over and we watched the Olympic highlights while we babysat Rosa for Mom. Sometimes I think Angela loves Rosa almost as much as I do. She calls her little soul sister, and she always wants to hold her. Baby Rosa took to her right off, and I must admit that it used to make me feel kind of jealous to see Rosa cuddle up to a stranger more than she did to me. But Angela's glow burned off that jealousy pretty fast, and it wasn't long before I loved how happy my soul sisters looked with each other. It surprised no one that American sprinters Tommy Smith and John Carlos finished first and third in the 200-meter. What shocked and infuriated people was what they did at the nationally televised medal ceremony. While the Star-Spangled Banner played, both men lowered their heads and raised black-gloved fists in a bold Black Power salute. People booed and hissed, but the two men took the abuse in proud, stony silence. Next to me, Angela whispered, "Right on. You look at that, little girl. Just look at what those two brothers are doing for you." October 1968, week 43, 109. The casualties over in Vietnam slowed. The carnage at home increased. Dad filed for divorce and hired a big-shot attorney to sue for custody. Not Rosa's, of course, mine. He claimed that Mom was unfit to be my mother, and he wanted to force me to live with him and to leave Rosa and Mom all alone to fend for themselves. Mom tried to hide it from me, but when I came home from school, she was sitting in the living room, Rosa on her lap and an open letter at her feet. She'd been crying, but she sat still as death staring at the letter. "It's getting nasty, Ash, nastier than I thought it would ever get." Then her voice caught and the tears started again. Rosa sensed her mom's heartbreak and started wailing. I picked up my sister, cooed and rocked her, and tried to convince Mom that everything would be all right. How? I didn't know. November 1968, week 44, 150. Dinner with Dad at Coco's, cheeseburger, fries, a chocolate shake, and a huge serving of quiet. He stared at his plate, then at me, then he sighed. Red rimmed his eyes, and his body sagged like he'd just finished a long march through the jungle. He couldn't sleep anymore, he said. He missed me, but after what Mom had done to him, he couldn't bear the sight of her. Dad cleared his throat and leveled his eyes on mine. I felt sorry for him when he said, "I'm just trying to do the right thing for you, son, honest." When I got home, the peacenik, with a mean afro, denim shirt, and bell-bottoms, sat with Mom and had Rosa tucked into the crook of his arm. He shook my hand and said, "My name's Marcus," and smiled, but behind his wire-rimmed glasses, his eyes looked nervous. Rosa's father was tall, broad-shouldered, and handsome. Mom said, "You two should have met sooner. I should have..." She dropped her eyes. "This wasn't fair to you or to Dad, and we never... Well, Rosa was a big surprise. I'm sorry, Ash, for what I've done to our family." Marcus planted a gentle kiss on Rosa's head and handed her to Mom. "I'll try to do right by you and Rosa, but I'm tapped out and on the run from the feds. When I get settled in Canada, I'll take care of you." We believed him, but in wartime, promises are as solid as smoke. The only good news that week came on Halloween. President Johnson announced a total halt to the U.S. bombing in North Vietnam. "It's a start," Mom said. "Maybe it'll turn out to be the beginning of the end of the war. Maybe by the time you graduate, we'll be out of Vietnam and you won't have to worry about the draft." Mom would turn out to be right, but not in the way she and I had hoped.